for that. It is starting on 5th of January. Then currently we are also having the intensive coaching class series is also on. So you can also enroll for that. Now, a very important announcement. Very soon we are introducing special lecture series on interpretation of statutes and its applicability in GST. So we will await this series and it's going to be beneficial to all. Kindly also subscribe to our GST channel and don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook. So we begin with the 5th study circle today. Now I would like to invite our president, Parth Badeka. Please come over and welcome us.
Good afternoon, all the participants who are present here in the library and also online. I first and foremost welcome our today's speaker, Mr. Rajat Talati, and I'm genuinely thankful for him to accept this invitation. Now, the thing is, I totally understand that this is the season of 99C and people would be busy. But, that way, if I just start looking at the season, July se leke December tak, there is some or the other written ka season. So the study cannot stop just because of that. Now, the reason we have kept this particular topic is because now there are two judgments and there is one judgment on which Supreme Court has also commented little bit. So is there any scope for argument which is still there with regards to bunching of notices or not? And what is the intricacy? And forget the judgment. What does the law state? And no better person than Mr. Rajat Talati to give us a good exposition of the law with regards to this. So thank you, Rajat sir. And what Sejal madam said with regards to interpretation of statutes, it is going to tentatively start on the 16th of January. And we are going to have extremely senior people who are going to come and address it. The way it has been curated is that there is a entire discussion of all the interpretation of statutes and how can you use it in your day-to-day practice. At the same time, we are going to have some very seniors who are going to talk about it. So please enroll for it. Please stay attuned to our WhatsApp channel, messages, website. You will get to know. But I'll not waste any further time. Once again, welcome Rajat Bhai and all the participants, and I wish you all a happy study. Thank you.
Now I request our chairman, CA Pranavbhai Kapadia, to come forward and share a few words with us. Your thoughts always set the perfect tone for the session ahead. Pranavbhai, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. Respected President Parth Badeka, all the office bearers present over here, the learned faculty, our past president, CA Rajat Talati, the members present over here, past presidents present over here, and all my dear friends. A very good afternoon to all of you. Yes, it is said that learning never ends. And under GST, I think there is always a rejuvenation of the learning that we have. We have seen in the context of the show cause notices. Earlier, we have seen that there were multiple show cause notices and there were issues where whether different departments, the CGST department, SGST department can issue notices for the same period on the same taxpayer, etc. And then people had to go to the courts, and then almost that thing is settled that okay, if one department has heard that show cause notice or adjudicated that show cause notice rather, then the other department cannot do so. Now the subsequent question which is arising in all those notices is the periodicity, the term period, whether multiple years can be adjudicated together or not. And we have been seeing differing judgments, as Parth rightly mentioned, that differing judgments on the subject are coming. And also CBIC has also come out with some instructions wherein they are telling that it is allowed as an administrative. So whether the law will prevail, the administration will prevail, and which judgment will prevail, I think for to guide us on that, I think we have a very learned person with us, our very own Rajat Bhai Talati, and I'm sure that it would be a very enriching session for all of us. Happy learning to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pranabhai. And now it's thank you, Pranabhai. And now it's time to introduce the expert who will help us make sense of these contradictions on notices. A person known for his clarity, calmness, and command over GST law, CA Rajat Bhai Talati. I request our subcommittee member, Ashish Bhai Ruparela, to introduce the speaker.
Hello. Yeah. Good afternoon, friends. So we have a brief, short introduction, senior as Pranav Bhai said, and clear and calm, which Sejal ma'am said. So my duty is to formally introduce you, sir. So I'll introduce you. So we have one of the senior members of GSTPM, your CA Rajat Talati. Rajat sir has a degree in commerce and law. He also has a diploma in finance from CFAI. He joined his family firm Talati and Company as a partner in 1986. With 35 years of extensive experience in tax advisory, litigation, transaction, structuring, and audits, Rajat Bhai is a veteran in indirect tax field. Rajat has numerous leading. He has worked with numerous leading Indian and multinational corporations in business restructuring, domestic and cross-border transaction. His clientele spans diverse industries, including pharmaceuticals, FMCG, bulk commodity and trade, wholesale and retail services, construction, and real estates. That's quite an experience, sir. He has also conducted in-depth GST impact analysis for multiple corporates and MNCs before the introduction of GST. He has been associated with various organizations. He has been a member of research committee of ICAI New Delhi for the year 1999, 2000, and also the indirect tax committee of ICAI Delhi for the year 2017-18. Over the years, he has served in various capacities of WRC at ICAI. He has regularly been a faculty member and mentors at GSTPM, CTC, BCS, and various trade associations. He has chaired numerous sessions and meetings on GST and VAT and is a regular speaker at training programs for professional and sales tax officers and state revenue audit department. He has also conducted research project on incidence of sales tax on plastic industries in various states of India. He has also been a co-author of various publications, including Guide to VAT Audit, published by WARC, Issues on MVAT Audit, Guide to GST Annual Return and Audit, and Maharashtra Settlement of Arrears of Tax, Interest Penalty and Late Fee Ordinance of 2019. He has been regularly. His contribution also extend to articles and columns featured in professional publications of ICI, WRC, GSTPM, BCS, AIFTP. He has been a past president of our association GSTPM for the year 2004-5 and also editorial roles for the review journal Sales Tax Review for the year 1996-97 and 1997-98. He has been joint honorary secretary of AIFTP from 1997 to 1999. So apart from professional achievements, he in his extracurricular activities, he is an nature enthusiast who loves mountains and beaches. He has undertaken high latitude treks, including sacred journey to Mount Kailash and Lake Mansarovar. So with this introduction, I'll please welcome Rajat sir too.
Thank you, Ashish Bhai. Now I request our president to give a token of appreciation to the speaker, CA Rajat Bhai. Now I would request the speaker, Rajat Bhai, please, the stage is all yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. At the outset, I must thank my association for calling me again on this platform to share my thoughts on the subject. The subject, the background is already laid down by my president and his team. But I must say that the notice is per se is a revenue churner for us as professionals. At the same time, the notice is also is a handle, an instrument, or an device for the authority to ensure that the due tax is received in the government treasury. So I would say that both have to perform their duty when the notices are received and we need to respond. Our duty would be to address it judiciously based on the facts and the available data. And then what would happen is the authority would be inclined to go through that what is submitted, and that would help the authority to come up with his understanding of the law. And then okay so the authority would be able to do a judicial assessment of the submissions made. Sure. Now what has happened is that the notices were issued after a certain gap of time, because after the GST introduction, the department was under the preparation for the monitoring system, which would be sort of a tax based system, so that they are able to control, monitor, and what we call take cognizance of the liability which is to be recovered from the SSCs, etc. So all wholesome software was under development. That took time, and in the meantime, the SSCs were also required to get used to the new environment of GST, not only the law, but also the technical nuances of the subject, the portal behavior, and the challenges of the portal. So in the process, the time lapsed. So what happened is, after a lapse of time, the period for issuance of notice came up for consideration, and the department, I believe, in their understanding of the law, thought of issuing one notice covering more than one financial year as a period for examination of the records of the SSC. Now that is how we have notices being received for a period of 2 to 5 years together. Now क्या हो रहा है? यार ना वो तो ठीक है. भाई नोटिस नहीं जा रहा है आगे. ना हाँ इसमें वही कर रहा था भाई. So what we have seen, because of the so-called bunching of notices or clubbing of notices for more than 2 years, etc., obviously the agitated SSC went to various high court by way of writ petitions. We have a beautiful judicial divide here. Why I'm saying beautiful? Because when it is beautiful, we ought to look at it more closely. So here we have some decisions of the High Court, namely Madras and Kerala, saying that it is valid. I stand corrected. It is an error here. And the Delhi and J&K holding it is invalid. Now, let's look at the Madras High Court. What my endeavor would be that I will take you through these judgments which are held it is which is a valid, which is held is as invalid. Then we have our own CBIC coming out with some sort of instructions. We go through that and then try and understand what is the way out in the process. Is it feasible to agitate? Would it be possible to agitate? And what is the standing of the CBIC's instructions? Because CBIC in their instruction has given a very long sort of arguments which the CBIC would want to be taken up by the states before the various high courts where this challenge has been repetitively been taken to. So my endeavor would be to try and understand what are the favorable decision, what are the decision which are against, what is CBIC saying, and what is the way forward. Now, in case of this Oriental Lotus Hotel, the petitioner's argument was that, look here, this bunching of notices is going against the very spirit of section 73 and 74, because 7310 refers to financial year at the time of deciding the limitation period. If that be the case, the notices ought to have issued in sync with the provisions of section 7310 as also 7410, and hence this is against the spirit of the same, because the act considers each financial year as a unit of assessment, and hence the notice should also coincide or sync with the provisions as given in the act. Of course, the revenue did not agree and they argued it otherwise. However, in this particular case, the court says that 7310 and 7410 prescribe a separate limitation of 3 to 5 years from the due date of filing of the annual return. And that is why that is a logical way of looking at the provision. The act therefore do not permit bunching of the notice or the clubbing of the notices for more than 1 year. And importantly, what it observed, it gives or causes unnecessary hardship to the SSC in terms of what? In inability to, he is not able to file compounding of offenses. If he were to find an application for compounding of offenses, he cannot file the application year-wise because the demand is one. He cannot avail amnesty benefit under section 128(28)(a), the waiver. He cannot avail that benefit because that is to be availed on year-to-year basis. He cannot contest the same issue in 1 year, leave aside the other year, because let us say he decides that the quantum is very small in 1 year, I would rather close that year, not file the appeal, but for the other year where there is a quantum is bigger, I would want to fight an appeal separately. That, what we call the freedom or the availability is not there with the with the SSC, and that is why they set aside the order. The another decision from Kerala. Now they read the of course the notice there issued was under section 74, so they had an occasion to go through section 74. They went through the section 74 1, 2 and limitation section 10, subsection 10 of 74. They observe that it leaves no room for any doubt that each assessment year can be proceeded separately by the assessing officer. Once again, harp was on 7410, which provides for a separate limitation for each year, and hence the notice should also sort of sync with those provisions. The SSC is entitled to raise separate defenses for each assessment year. These are not my words, these are the words of the High Court. They said that you have right to raise separate defense for each financial year, each assessment year. This may lead to a situation where the SSC is deprived of the lesser time period for limitation. Now, what is this coming from? When you have more than 1 year of 1 year covered under the show cause notice, obviously, if let us say 1819 was getting time barred, Along with 1819, 1920, 2021, 2021, 22, 4 years notice is issued. 1819 was getting time barred under section 73. So officer would always issue notice under section 74. And for that reason, the other 3 years would also get covered for 74. Of course, we will try and agitate whether 74 is attracted or not. But nonetheless, this has been the approach of the assessing officer, the proper officer in these cases. So in the process, what would happen is the court observed the situation may lead where the SS is deprived of the lesser time period of limitation under section 73. In cases where the proceedings may fall under section 73 instead of 74. So like example which I gave, 1819 was not covered by 73. I mean, this was definitely could have been issued under 73, but for this particular reason, he was inclined, the officer was inclined to issue the notice under 74. Titan. Another Madras High Court decision. This is very interesting. Notice is issued under section 73. Once again, 7310. You see all the, whether it is Madras High Court or Kerala High Court, the courts have been very consistently viewing section 7310 or 7410 as the precursor to decide as to whether the limitation period which is giving any hint of the sinking of the assessment year being a 1 year. So the notice under section 73(1) could be issued in commensurate with the limitation, which is a year-wise limitation. The contention of the revenue that there is no time limit contemplated under section 73 of the Act is not correct. By issuing bunching of show cause notices for five assessment year, the respondent, that is the state, is trying to do certain things indirectly which they are not permitted to do directly. Very positive statement. Now, when we come to CBIC's circular, they will say these are fact specifics and they are governed or they are applicable into the court's jurisdiction of the particular high court. Well, fine, we will come to that. Mark this important. The court observed that the thing which you cannot do directly cannot be done indirectly as well. The law states that a particular action has to be completed within a particular year. The same has to be carried out accordingly. Once again, a positive assertion saying that if there is a time limit provided, you ought to follow that time limit judiciously. The limitation period will be separately applicable each assessment year, and hence bunching was not acceptable. Now comes Jammu and Kashmir, head of our nation, because they sit on the top. What does it say? There were several issues involved, but interestingly, issue number 4 was in respect of the bunching of notice. So I'm picking up only that, because here the interesting issue was of the supplies made by the state of Jammu and Kashmir, from the state of Jammu and Kashmir to our own POK, Pakistan occupied Kashmir, because we have stated that this is our own territory, and rightly observed by the and held by the High Court. They are saying that this is a intra-state supply and not an export. So as a patriotic Indian, I would really welcome that decision. What does the High Court say regarding the bunching? Sorry. The High Court said the CST Act, CGST Act, as also the J&K State GST Act do not provide any prohibition for issue of one composite notice. The bunching of show cause notice pertaining to multiple financial years is permissible when provided that the requirements of section 73 and 74 are met. That means you ought to follow the limitation provided in 73 and 74 for each of the year which is covered by the notice. Secondly, the year-wise breakup of tax, interest and penalty is ascertainable. The allegations are not vague. So they ought to clearly say that, see, this is common for any show for that reason. If the allegation is vague, the derivation is what we call vague and not, any show cause notice will fall. But nonetheless, they have mentioned. The notice is speaking and detailed one. In instant case, the case before the High Court, in case of new GN, of course, one were to look at it, there are as many as 25 writ petition clubbed together and one judgment is given. So they said instant case, that means all cases which are covered by the judgment. It cannot be said that the bunching of composite show cause notice issued in respect of tax periods falling in 1718 to 1819 is impermissible and liable to be interfered with. So they say that this is a valid provision. Now another JNK decision. They said, now this was a case of 74. Prima facie, there is no prohibition. However, the issue is left open. Important. ये आधा छोड़ दिया बाद में. The issue is left open to be determined in appropriate proceedings as the Act does not expressly prohibit such bunching of notices. What is the decision in that case? The decision was to decide whether the issuance of the show cause notice for a multiple period is correct or not. And the very same question is left open. Now, Ambika, Delhi. Now, this is the judgment which is quite elaborate on the subject. So, I have also covered it little in detail here for our discussion. What it held? The issuance of consolidated notice for multiple year is permissible because it is fitting within the framework of the statute. Analysis of 74.3 and 74.4 reveals the use of the phrase. Now 74.3 and 73.3 talks about a situation where a notice is issued, and on this very same facts, same issue, if the adjudicating officer wants to issue another notice, he may be allowed to issue a statement in lieu of a proper notice, and that statement will be considered as deemed to be issued as a notice. So they are referring to 74.3 and 73.3. And what are they saying? They are using certain words which are mentioned in that provision where the statement is to be issued for any period. Now the important is, they say the section provides for statement which is a deemed notice to be issued for any period, and for such period it will be deemed as a notice issued. Now these are the two words which are mentioned in section 74.3. So they say that this is in contrast to the financial year which is mentioned in section 74.10, similarly 73.10. Meaning thereby the word which is chosen, the word which is used here, which is in conscious call of the judiciary to, for the parliament to have selected that words to mean differently, because in 73.4 they are using the word any period, and for 73.10 they are using the period phrase financial year. So that is, they said we ought to give specific understanding to these two different words which is used here. The the choice of word signifies that a notice for a fraudulent ITC. Once again, why I have highlighted this word? The fact was that in this particular case, there was a case of fake invoicing and fraudulent claiming of ITC. Obviously, the High Court was to come very strong to protect the revenue in that case. In that circumstances, these particular observations the High Court has to be understood and read. The choice of words signifies that a notice for fraudulent ITC can relate to a period that may encompass more than one financial year. So they say that for a ITC and where there is a fake invoicing or say circular transactions and there is a passing of fake ITC or fraudulent ITC, one need to look into more than one financial year to find out the modus operandi of such SSE to prove the case of a fraud. Now, in that case, in that background, these observations are made. So, one will have to be very particular about reading those judgment and under what circumstances these observations are made. So, can you really use these kind of phrases for a case which is a normal assessment, normal adjudication proceedings? The nature of fraudulent ITC scheme often involves interconnected transaction across different financial years, and a consolidated analysis is necessary to establish the pattern of fraud. Now, that is what is the observation. And my dear CBIC has picked up these words in the instructions. A consolidated notice is not only permissible but may be required effectively to demonstrate willful misstatement or suppression of facts. The nature of ITC is such that fraudulent utilization and availment of the same cannot be established on most occasions without connecting transaction over different financial years. These are observation in line with the findings of facts in a particular case. The challenge to the consolidated show cause notice is dismissed by holding it to be legally valid and not constituting a jurisdictional error. That is what is mentioned. Now, in view of these number of writ petition, number of challenges happening at the first appellate level, maybe at the show cause level itself, where the SSE would or the taxpayer would challenge the notice, several notices are pending or several appeals are pending on those lines. Of course, writ petitions were also being filed in different courts where the state were required to take a particular stand. Now, in view of that, CBIC has not issued circular, although I mentioned as circular because in common parlance, we all have been using this term as circular. It is a policy statement, which is a standard policy comments of the GST policy wing on the subject bunching of notice. This is dated 16th of September 2025. Now, what is the preamble for this instruction? Arising out of challenging the legality, constitutionality and validity of issuance of a consolidated demand notice covering multiple financial years in various high courts. So they say they observed that this has been agitated, this has been challenged at various high courts, and hence the CBIC need to come out with some instruction for standard representation. First positive statement they make is composite show cause notice is legally permissible under section 73-74. The proper officer is duly empowered. There is no express bar in the statute. I will just read the salient features because then it will be good to then go through each of these observations or their features and then see how we really understand these features. Each tax period covered in the show cause is subject to its own limitation. So one will have to go through the limitation for each year covered under the notice. The limitation period for each remains unaffected, to be taken into account independently in order to meet the limitation criteria individually for each year concerned. So one will have to go through each year's criteria to find out whether limitation period is hit or not. In fact, they have given up one example for 17, 18, 18, 19 along with the date by which the notice ought to be issued under 73 or 74 as the case may be, and the order need to be passed under 73 or 74 considering the limitation. What it further says, Consolidation serves only as a procedural mechanism and does not dilute or override the temporal restriction imposed by law on the issuance of notice or orders. They say this is just a procedural things we are looking at. One will have to really understand as to whether issuing a show cause is a procedure or is a must to initiate any legal proceedings against a SSE. We have several decisions to say that if the show cause notice is not properly issued, the entire proceedings fails. But look at the casual words being used in the CBI instructions. Advantageous. Now, issuing the bunch notice is advantageous even to the taxpayer as it requires appearance only once for presenting submissions and defense at the stage of adjudication. Now, our experience is otherwise. If there are 3 years involved, at least 4 visits are required. Because each year we'll have different facts. If let us say a issue of ITC mismatch is there, every year we'll have to download the data, do a 2A to B reconciliation, explain to the officer. We'll have to understand how much he comprehends in the first go. Second year, once again the same exercise to be done. Third year also the same. So whether it is advantageous to the taxpayer, only the CBSE knows. Because the time given is the same. Now I need to provide data for all 4 years together in the statutory time of 15 days. Had it been a different issue, I would have prepared for 1 year, given the submission. The next notice will come, I would give the submission again. But as such, the time would be there for preparation and representation. It not only prevents duplication of proceedings, but also ensures judicial economy. ये किधर से शब्द आया? What is judicial economy? It becomes economically cheaper. That is why it is judicial economy. I have not heard this word. Ensures judicial economy by saving valuable time and effort of both the taxpayer and the adjudicating authority. It is incorrect to say that each period necessarily requires a fresh SCN in every case. The law deems the statement as a valid notice. Once again, they are reading now 73(4). Fulfilling the principles of due process. Clubbed show cause notices covering multiple tax periods on identical grounds are not only permissible but envisaged by the statute itself to avoid multiplicity of proceedings. What does the Act say? Act say that if a statement is issued, it will be deemed as a show cause notice. What does that mean? I ought to issue a statement separately so as to be constituted, so as to be deemed as a show cause notice. Now, law does not say that you can issue it together. Let's go further. In investigation, it is necessitated to establish the modus adopted by some businesses and entities. In investigation, 99% of such notices are otherwise than an investigation proceedings. It is advantageous even to the taxpayer as it requires appearance only once for presenting submission in defense at the stage of adjudication. Not only this is repeated twice, so I have reproduced it twice here. Not only prevents duplication of proceedings but also ensures judicial economy by saving valuable time effort at both levels. Let's go further. Now it says in investigation it is necessary to establish modus. Now it refers to judgment in Titan and Tharile Medical. Both I have referred to. These decisions are distinguishable. How is not mentioned. And not binding pan-India. Meaning thereby they are saying that the jurisdiction of the court is to the state where the court has a jurisdiction. So let us say if it is the Bombay High Court, then the state of Maharashtra and Goa will be covered. If it is Delhi High Court, the Delhi and Delhi state will be covered. If it is Calcutta High Court, the West Bengal state will be covered. Now, if that be the case, is the judgment of Delhi Is the judgment of Jammu and Kashmir applicable pan India? Now, another question. Bombay High Court has not come up with any decision for or against these bunching of notices. Sorry? Goa. Now, what has they said? It is not valid. So, following the Goa bench decision of the Bombay High Court, in the state of Maharashtra, we will jolly well say that the show cause notice is invalid. What will Gujarat do? What will Uttar Pradesh do? What will Andhra do? Or what will Karnataka do? So all cases where we do not have a jurisdictional high court decision, obviously the decision which is in favor would be presented by the SSC and the officer would take the other case. Now, there will be a challenge here in terms of the first judicial level that we are at. Now, here the situation would be, obviously, one will be forced to go to the appeals. Now, I will touch upon these aspects later on when we talk about the fallouts. I'll just reserve these comments here at this juncture. Now, the CBIC circular also refers to one old Supreme Court decision in case of Caltex India. Now, this was a case, once again, coming from Jammu and Kashmir. The period cover was 1955 to 1959. For the period from May 55 to December 55, constitutionally, the levy was valid, and from January 56 to 59, the levy was invalid. The issue before the Supreme Court was whether the order which is passed for an entire period of from 55 to 59 can be enforced against the SSC or not. The Supreme Court says that, look here, when you have good part and the bad part, you can segregate the good and accept the same and discard the non-good part as unconstitutional and do not enforce it. But here, what was important was decided was the constitutionality of a particular provision for levy. And then the subsequent issue was, how do you enforce the levy which is collected as correct, which is received in the treasury as tax? And in that respect, these observations were made. That is my understanding of the Supreme Court's decision. Now, the CBIC circular simply observe the show cause notices which are a bunch for multiple years and breakup of the tax for each financial year is made available to the taxpayer is in congruence with Supreme Court decision in case of Caltex India. Straightway, only one such statement is mentioned, not going inside the Supreme Court order. Now, what it further says, where the show cause notice clearly delineates the tax liability for each financial year, the taxpayer is fully informed of the demand, he is not prejudiced. The limitation period and the ability to respond to, contest to, or settle the liability on a year-wise basis remains intact, thereby satisfying the principles of natural justice. They say, even if there is a bunching of notice, the tax liability is communicated year-wise to him. He is given full liberty to represent himself, to contest whatever the point is given, and hence the natural justice, principle of natural justice is fulfilled. It further says, the bundling of multiple years in single show cause does not result in disqualification from the scheme under 128A. We will touch upon this in greater detail. They say that does not deprive the SSC of availing benefit of 128A in 1 year, which is covered by the notice, and one which is outside the scope of 128A, he can find out the period and avail the benefit. And Pachi subsequent circular. Now it further says, even for composition under 138 can be availed, the compounding which can be availed under 138 can be applied on a pro rate basis, meeting the monetary calculation. 160, now it finally issues a Brahmastra. It says that under section 160, where the taxpayer has participated in the proceedings, the entire proceeding is protected. That is the final say before saying goodbye to us. Thus, the view of the revenue authority is that there is no illegality in bunching multiple financial years in one show cause notice. Now, let's counter each item of the circular considering the decisions we have read for and against. Now, let's look at the tax period. The Delhi High Court was referring to, in the Ambika case, was referring to tax period. So tax period is defined under section 2106. It talks about the period for which return is to be filed. Section 211 talks about self-assessment. Section 44 talks about filing annual return. Mind you, the word tax period refers to the period for which return is to be filed. Annual return is also a return. Thus, financial year read with section 73-74 becomes period of assessment, and its limitation is to be reference to the financial year, where the limitation is to the reference to the financial year. So once again, the very basic premise of that Ambika decision which the CBSE wants to follow, I am trying to argue against the same. Moreover, 73.2 provides for any period and refers to 73.10. So linkage is established here. 73.3 talks about statement of such period, which I just mentioned a while back when we talked about the Ambika. Refers to period for which statement is issued and not such period discussed and understood by Delhi High Court and relied by CBSE. Therefore, financial year is the period for which return, annual return, where applicable, is to be read as tax period. This is my line of argument for the tax period. Consolidation, which is a procedural mechanism that was said. Issue of notice, as I mentioned a while back, goes to the very root of the assessment proceedings. If that is incorrectly issued, not properly issued, the entire proceedings fails. For this, the provisions are to be followed strictly, and failure leads to invalidation or voids, and it voids the proceedings entirely. One cannot dispense the correct issuance of show cause notices. The Madras High Court had considered all these issues in their decision. Now, Caltex, which is used, referred to in the CBSE instructions. Keep good part and discard the incorrect part of the order. Before the Supreme Court, a case was constitutional validity of taxing a provision and upholding the valid provision and discarding the invalid provision. The constitutionally invalid period was to be discarded. Now here you're talking about procedure which is laid down in the statute. Now how can you ignore? If I were to file an application for refund within a particular period, relevant period, if I do not do it in time, my claim of refund is disallowed, because that is the procedure provided, that is the provision. There it is to be construed strictly. We have several decisions. If notice is to be issued in a particular period, that limitation is also provided. If the notice is non-speaking, does not quantify the liability or provides the method for computation of liability in a particular case, that notice cannot stand. That we have several decisions to that. Now, in this scenario, would you say that issuing of a show cause notice is just a procedural thing? In that case, why issue show cause notice? He can issue us a telephone call and simply say, come over tomorrow. Why do you have a procedure called notice being issued? So, brushing aside by mentioning it is just a procedural, I mean, it is a very, very simple way of saying it that I do not want to accept this just because I don't want to accept. Now, scheme of 128A, the CBIC observed that you are not deprived of. Look at the audacity. CBIC policy statement para 5.5 refers, wherein composite proceedings, such SCNs covering multiple years can be dissected period-wise, enabling separate treatment for the purpose of limitation, adjudication, or availing of statutory benefits like GST amnesty scheme. Now, as for original circular 238, point number 6 in the table, what did it say? To avail 128 waiver, all periods covered by notice was to be accepted, and for remaining period not covered by 128A scheme, amount was payable as per rule 164.17. That means your scheme never thought about it. Later on, they issued another circular 148 withdrawing that para. And what did it say? Taxpayer was allowed to continue with the appeal for periods not covered by scope of 128A, para 4.2, and afterthought being touted as a framework. Look at this. Now, the rule was not amended. By circular, administratively, you said you file SPL 02, etc. And now you are trying to make a statement that we always provided for it. Still, on account of compulsion, the taxpayer was not allowed to pick and choose year covered by the notice availing 128 waiver. Still, even after the second circular, was the SEC allowed to pick 1 year and leave the other year? Answer is no. This was a clarification issued under section 168(1). So, circular number 248 was issued under section 168(1). But for it, the scheme of 128A and rule 164 does not provide for it. So, administratively, you issued an instruction bypassing the provision of the section in the rule, and you are trying to now say that this is a part of my framework. This is a strong point to take it up. My friend C.B. Thakur is noting that. Sir, I am coming to 160. Now, compounding of offenses. Another, they say 128A we have taken care of. Now we are taking care of even compounding under section 138. Now, section 138 provides for compounding of an offense. Rule 162 provides for procedure for compounding of offenses. Nowhere it mentions that compounding amount is to be calculated based on yearly period. It doesn't provide it. You read 168, you read 138, you read rule 162, doesn't provide for it. Can the taxpayer opt for only 1 year out of, say, 5 years involved in an order? By administrative concession, law cannot be administered. You are giving administrative concessions and then trying to say that the framework of the law provides, and hence I am in agreement with bunching of notices, clubbing of notices, one notice covering more than one financial year. This is also a very strong point, I believe. 160 CB5. Participating in assessment proceedings. Now, issue of consolidated show cause notice or order. Section 160 speak about that any mistake, defect or omission therein, if you have participated and the notice or any proceeding contain any mistake, defect or omission, that will be ignored if you have participated in it. That is what section 160 says. Issuing a wrong notice, can you say that it is covered by the phrase any mistake, defect or omission? If I issue notice which is not speaking, which is disregarding the facts, can such notice be touted as a mistake which can be pardoned, or a defect or an omission which can be pardoned under 160? Now, this is what is the root cause of multiple notice issued for multiple years. Now, interestingly, unsigned notices were issued or order were issued and uploaded on the portal. These were challenged, several high courts. Now, one would understand, when the portal uploads, on the portal the order is uploaded, the officer has to log in. So that gives his some sort of digital signature. Once he logs into the system and he uploads the order, actually speaking, one can definitely say there was a sort of a digital signature of the officer, not on the down as we call it DSC, but there was some authority under which that was uploaded. But for that, nobody would have been able to upload. But for that particular jurisdictional officer who has the authority to assess a particular taxpayer, nobody else can log in and upload an order in case of a particular taxpayer. Now, that be the case, one can say that there was a sort of a digital signature attached to that uploading, sort of. Still, the High Court say that these does not get covered in the scope of section 160. Now, this is a case which is much larger issue than mere signature. I'm saying mere signature, but what I'm trying to say is otherwise the entire proceeding was conducted fairly if I were to accept that proposition. Still, the high courts, not one, several high courts have come up and said that this will not be treated as covered by the scope of section 160. An unsigned order cannot be covered under the phrase any mistake, defect or omission therein, as used in section 160. The said expression refers to any mistake, defect or omission is an order in an order with respect to assessment, reassessment, adjudication, etc., which shall not be invalid or deemed to be invalid by such reason if in substance and effect the assessment, reassessment, etc., is conformity with requirements of the act or any existing law. But provided you have to fit that, I'm fitting into the basic phrase of mistake, defect and omission. These would not cover omission to sign the order and would not cure the defect which goes to the very root of the matter. Not my words. Once again, I'm going to the old, the decision of Delhi High Court, which has referred to the old Supreme Court decisions under the income tax. Now, here the case was of the amalgamation of the two companies, and the order was issued in the name of the amalgamated company, which gets wiped off from the what we call the roles of the Companies Act. They loses their identity once it gets amalgamated into the amalgamating company. The order was issued in the name of the amalgamated company. There, the High Court followed the Supreme Court decision in case of Maruti Suzuki. At para 19, it reproduced para 36 of the Maruti decision. It says, participation in the proceedings by the appellant in these circumstances cannot operate an estoppel against the law. It followed the other Supreme Court decision of spice infotainment. The provisions under the income tax 292B, I believe, yes, 292B is para materia with section 160. What did it say? In our considered opinion, the principle that we had identified in International Hospital, albeit in the context of the IT Act, would equally apply to the CGST Act. That is what my Delhi High Court has said. Same Delhi High Court which held that the bunching of notice is valid. This is their own decision. I forgot to see the names of the judges. Were they the same judges or not? But because this is also 24 and that is also some 23, 24 decision only. Possibly the same judges would have answered. Anyway, due respect to the honorable judges, but this is what is the contradiction I notice in the decision. Now, how do we go ahead? Now the cases, the way forward. Let's look at the practical difficulties that we will have now. The cases where year-wise breakup of the issue of tax note, liability, etc. is not available. What could be the instances where there is a, let us say, debit note, credit note issue? One would have, or there could be an interpretation of the contract which is entered into, and there he has vaguely picked up one contract for a particular year and tried to generalize the notice, saying that the SSC is into business of providing so and so type of services, which is not a finishing services like service tax regime, which is not a consultancy services but a business support service kind of a situation. They will want to try and generalize the understanding from one contract and try and treat the tax liability differently than what the SSC has discharged in the GSTR 3B. In such cases, there is no year-wise data available to you. There could be a case where there is a common thread flowing, like the fraudulent ITC, or maybe registration being cancelled retrospectively, and then we have a ITC to be disallowed. ITC for 18, 19, 19, 20, 2021, where the registration is retrospectively cancelled from, say, 2018 mid-year. So you have 2.5 years where same issue is involved. Possibly quantification is not available. Possibly. This is quite possible. Once you answer the show cause notice, he will try and dig out the numbers. So, prima facie, that notice does not have the numbers. That is my point. Rate of tax. 1 year, he has observed that particular item, the rate of tax is 18% and not 12%. And accordingly, they have issued a show cause notice. The quantification for all 3 years is probably not done or not available with the officer at that point of time. In all these cases where the quantification is not available, even CBIC instruction would fail. Keep fighting. If it is available, what do you do? It is quite possible you have challenged the notice at the threshold. You have not participated in it. But then the practical sense prevails. The business will take a very practical stand. They would say, झगड़ा करे क्या मतलब क्या, कल जाके notice अपहेल हो गया तो मेरा तो demand आ जाएगा. So he will attend to the proceedings. In that case, what do you do? Even if you have registered your what we call objection on day one, saying that before we write to the on merits, your taxpayer wishes to put on record that the notice is incorrectly issued because so and so following the Bombay High Court decision of the Goa bench, or the Madras High Court decision, or the Kerala High Court decision. Now, as an alternate and to meet the ends of justice, I provide 1, 2, 3 details. Now, you have done both. You have registered your protest, at the same time you have complied with it. Would it amount to participation? Once again, section 160, the analysis which I discussed a while back, should stand. Now that adjudication is done, there is some order, some amount has come to you as demand, which is in a way disputed by you. You are in appeal. You have paid 10%. Continues to agitate. Once again, the first ground would be that the notice is not correctly issued and the entire proceeding is that is why incorrect and false. You continue to fight. If you have not been successful in the first appeal on your merits, you are in tribunal. Continue your stand as it is. The next issue is, would the writ survive, or can the writ be filed against the policy statement or clarification which is issued by CBSE, or the line of argument which the CBSE has given by way of a public document? Can a writ be issued? Can you treat this thing as a circular? What is the binding nature before the subordinate officer? Subordinate officer will say that even if in the early morning my boss will say it is good night, I will say good night. If that be the case, that be the attitude, or that be the independence of the subordinate officers, for them this is the gospel truth. They will follow aankh band karke. In this light, can you really challenge the writ petition? Now, the scope of writ, my advocate friends would know it much more than I do, is restricted. Now, there has to be a cause of action here. The cause would start when the notice is issued, or cause will start from the writ in anticipation of the proceedings being initiated against me. So, can the writ be filed against the way we file the writ against the circular? Can such stand be taken and writ be filed against this sort of policy statement? One will have to really examine that point. It is not an open and shut case that yes, jaake file karke aao. However, if there is a live proceedings before the High Court where the writ is already filed against a writ petition, against a issuance of a bundled notice covering more than one financial year, one can definitely say that the CBSE instruction are wrong on ABCD. You may not be able to say that they have exceeded their jurisdiction, because they have issued that instruction as administrative instruction, and which they are duty bound to do it, which is all within their powers to do a supervisory sort of oversight. That be the case, they are well within the power, so that statement would not survive. But you can always say that the revenue stand on ABCD issues is not correct, and the court may be pleased to issue some direction on those lines. The court, in their wisdom, may or may not accept. But filing a writ, in my submission, looks to be challenging. If you are in appeal, what do? Do you want to continue to challenge it, continue to pursue that route, or should you argue on merits and try and reduce the liability? Once again, a practical stand. We झगड़ के 2 करोड़ का लायबिलिटी है, घट के 15 लाख होता है ना, तो खत्म तो करो. कंटिंजेंट लायबिलिटी कम दिखेगा बुक्स के अंदर. माय बैंकर्स विल नॉट रिड्यूस माय वर्किंग कैपिटल लिमिट ऑन दोज अकाउंट्स, because if there is a favorable order, the audit committee of the board will have a look at it, and the same thing will be reported under the SEBI regulation. It will have to be reported under the listing agreement before the various stock exchanges. So that is a favorable statement. Would you not think about those lines also? Trying to reduce the liability, win it on merits, putting aside all your challenges of the bunching of notices. Once again, a practical stand. But if you are driven to the wall, you have no case on merits, then fight it out on these lines only. Technically, you will have to file. The way first thing in any show cause notice is to challenge the limitation and invoking section 74. That is the first thing. Everybody does it, not me. Everybody does this. You look at the limitation, you look at the proper service, you look at the what we call natural justice, and that is how you start the reply. The first reply is always the technical challenge. Technically, you challenge that notice or the order. Now, that is how you will have to take a practical stand here.
At least by doing that at 162 years and if it is called into question, you already called the notice into question, then maybe you have some case later.
Yeah. Later on, you have still something to say. Would that be considered as compliance to 160 as participation? That is the next issue I have also taken up. So what happens is, now in that scenario, I have registered my objection on day one. If that is done, obviously, later on also I will say that under the circumstances, it was prudent for me to have participated and hence I participated. Once again, go back to the HCL decision, which says that under the circumstances, he participated. That does not meet the scope of 160. Those compelling reason, 2 crore ka demand tha, I know on merits, I will reduce it down to 15 lakhs at least. On these points, I have a good case. I participated it. So under that circumstances, I participated. So, I mean, once again, these are the cases on the facts of each case we will have to build around. And it is not so easy to say directly yes. Now, once again, all these cases consider the stake involved. 5 lakh, 10 lakh rupees ke liye litigation doesn't help anybody. The time and efforts involved, the money involved, the businesses will take that consideration in any case. As sorry, possibly there was some issue with the audio in between. So what I was trying to say is, the business would always look at the stake involved in the entire issue. That being the case, if paltry sum of say 2, 4 lakh, 5 lakhs rupees are involved, and the time and effort required to keep the litigation pending, maintain the records for the pending years of litigation, etc., becomes a challenge. And normally, what is observed is taxpayers would want to bury the hatch and go ahead, depending on the sort of appetite of each SSE. One will have to take that call also, saying, looking to the stake involved. So this is a practical advice, not a legal statement which I make. Legally, one would be very strong to say that bunching of notice is not acceptable. Once again, when you are in appeal or in proceeding, you will always examine litigation for each year and look at the challenge. The first challenge will be whether it is 73 or 74. Look at the limitation period, and you will continue to challenge whether the notice which is issued tantamount to suppression or a willful statement or willful misstatement. Now that 74 section per se, one will have to see, because what is observed in majority of these cases is the bunching of notice was issued mainly in section 74, mainly. So all these cases, one will have to really look at those aspects and on merits also challenge that. Friends, I thank once again for this very limited subject that I was to deal with today. I hope I have been able to cover this subject. I will be happy to take on the questions if any. Thank you.
Rajat,
Yes.
I think you are not gone through the Goa bench of the Bombay High Court decision, but the Bombay High Court has distinguished the Ambika Traders Delhi High Court. See, there are the written word is appearing in 74, and the period is also there. So the Bombay High Court has interpreted the meaning of the term period, because the period is a tax period for which return is to be filed. And we have got two type of the return in 3B and annual return.
Correct.
So the Bombay High Court has taken a logical view of the matter, that since the time limit is prescribed with reference to the annual return, then the period here would be, tax period would be as per the annual return. That is the Bombay High Court Goa bench decision, which is not in the Ambika Traders. Now, Ambika Traders Delhi High Court judgment SLP was filed before the Supreme Court, but it was dismissed by the Supreme Court at the instance of the repetitioner.
Because this was mutually acceptable,
No,
and
no,
hence it was
No, it was not pressed.
It was withdrawn.
It was withdrawn.
So that is what I mean. Mutually acceptable.
So now today, the Bombay High Court judgment is prevailing in Maharashtra and Goa. Now one will say, why should I go for the writ petition? What was the outcome? Either tell the two things, that either 74 notice is quashed, it has to be quashed. Then the department will not get the time to issue the fresh notice.
By
And
that time,
entire liability will go. But more particularly is that when the State Department in the Maharashtra has adopted a policy to issue the notice for the financial year, when the central officer issues the notice, he also acts as an officer of the Maharashtra Department. See, look that we have got the two enactment. One is the state GST, one is the central GST. Because of section 6 of the act, the central officer also acts as an officer of the commissioner in Maharashtra. The issue is here, larger issue, that when a central officer acts not as a delegate but as an officer of the Maharashtra government, is he not duty bound to follow the instruction given by the commissioner of that state? See, that is also, and how can there be a two policy by the State Department and the central government? Different policy.
I mean, your point is really interesting to have a look at it. Why the central officer, who is now acting as a subordinate of the state commissioner, can why do not he follow the state's instruction? Very, I mean, one will have to really challenge it. Yes, please.
Just adding on to what Wagani sir said in Milrock, the Goa High Court judgment. Now there is a problem with the Milrock judgment also, because I'll tell you live, because in one of my matters recently, of course, the department has taken time to file reply and everything. Same thing. Now, what Rajat sir also said, even that Theriali or that judgment, forgetting
Karali.
that judgment. Now, what they say is that we are looking at, we are allowing this because, there is some fraud in or whatever that is there. Now, my point is, if Milrock itself says that, that notice was also under 74, but Milrock also carves out like a small saying that because there is no fraud involved, we are not doing this. But the point is larger. Even if, say, for example, there is an allegation of fraud or something, if the act itself is not allowing it, how are you going to allow it? So this whole thing about fraud vitiates everything, that doesn't really count here. That doesn't really count here. Yeah, there cannot be a special treatment provided.
So the act is very, very plain and simple. It applies to all proceedings. Under the proceeding, you have noticed there is a fraud, and there is a fraud. That is why notice is issued is incorrect.
No, but Wagani sir, that I don't think that we can say that he's the subordinate of the Maharashtra State Commissioner. He's the officer. He's the officer. He's acting in capacity of the officer of the Maharashtra State Central. You can say that, but he's not subordinate to the Maharashtra State Commissioner.
If you look at the SGST Act, the entire function is with the commissioner.
Correct.
If you look at the CGST Act, it is the board CBIC. Now we agree that these two are independent act. These two are independent act. So when I am allowed to pass the order under the MGST Act, then I am a subordinate to the commissioner. That is my submission. Now, had there been a no circular from the CBIC, and there was a circular by the commissioner, even we had a circular by the commissioner earlier on some point of time, then the issue was whether commissioner circular is binding on the central when he is passing order under the MGST Act. See, it's a larger issue, but we are parking that argument. We are parking that argument for a larger interest. Why? That you know that there is a very difficulty in getting the writ admitted before the High Court.
At least in Bombay.
When you highlight such issues to the High Court judge, then this cannot be taken up in a bill. This has to be decided. Consultation.
No, sir. My point is that, of course, I mean, if the High Court is willing to listen, a lot of points can be taken up. So that is apart beside the point. But this is something that I mean, even our seniors here, Rajat sir, this is what I want to see, because I understand that it might be skipped out. The Milrock, what it says as per Janak Bhai, it is talking about tax period. What is it dealing with the tax period? It is taking you to 44, which is the annual return. And that is how it is linking both of them. So it is saying 7410, 7310, both talk about financial year and for the tax period. So that is why they said that it is invalid. But the point is, even Milrock or whatever be the case, even if there is an allegation of fraud under 74, the point is the notice is issued under 74. Milrock and other judgments have also dealt with notices under 74. They have come to some conclusion that this is not a question of fraud. How are they say? Mere notice cannot determine fraud, no? Mere notice. Yeah.
And not the initiation of notice. And the act also do not have a separate.
It has to apply uniformly. My point is, it has to apply uniformly. Just because there is a fraud.
One more issue is that when the information is available for 1 year before the department, then for the subsequent year, there is no suppression. There is a katana of judgment under the service tax and excise that when information is available for the 1 year, say for 18-19, you have got the information. Then the subsequent year for 19-20, you cannot go into 74.
18-19 information. Did you receive in 2021 or you?
Rajat, सवाल ऐसा है.
Separation, these separation cannot be held in 1920. But see, I tell you, all these excise decisions, person would have been on the spot that year that the return or statement was filed with RT, whatever it is, and then the separation was noticed. So it cannot be taken in the next year.
So our point of argument is that even for application of section 74, one has to see the year for which it is issued.
No, not suppression, sir. But that will be, in my opinion, a very limited. In some cases, it might argue, because if not suppression, if I am the officer, I would say I am not going to suppression at all. There is still willful misclassification. There is still fraud. So I mean, if the case is so bad that it's just a question. If they say 74, see, the problem is with the department where they are not able to. What they do with 74 is that had we not come and seen, they would have we would have not said that. That is a defeating argument. 73-1 में वो लोग बहुत हारे C stat में, and they will lose here also till 74A comes and saves them. But yeah, they don't know how to involve fraud, because it's very simple. Even if you got to know for 17-18, 18-19, the same thing is continued. There is still willful misclassification of facts. There is still fraud.
So one addition to your argument, where there are data is available year wise or not. some mismatch of the ITC. They don't give the with reference to the year notice when mismatch of the ITC 2A versus 3B. Now my 3B also includes my previous year ITC or this year ITC I have carried forward to subsequent year. So when there is a notice for the mismatch of ITC under section 74. No. What they say year wise, no, path. So that is what I'm telling you. When you are going a year wise information available or not, that was the CBIC circular. Now in mismatch of ITC, there is no year wise details. So it's clearly covered by the CBIC circular. That there is no year wise details.
This can go in favor of the revenue also. I mean, one will have to really see that part. How is this to be considered? Anyway, any other issue? Yes, please.
Sir, actually, this clubbing of the notice, suppose in a 1 year I am getting on the classification one notice. Can I request officer to club my all 5 years?
Notice is issued by him. It is not at your behest. Let's understand. SSC cannot request for a notice. I'll tell you, in old days, if there is a refund available and I have forgotten to file 501 for VAT, I was always inclined to go and notice issue karna. Was the notice issued by you on your request? Answer is no. So notice is issued not at the behest of the officer. Notice is issued by the officer if he is not satisfied.
But in case the 5 notices are, can I ask for a merger?
Sunil, clubbing of adjudication can be requested.
You
See,
can
clubbing of adjudication. Clubbing of adjudication is fine.
Can be
But
requested.
they have to be 5 different notices. You can say consider all together. That is different. That is administrative.
I have to again, every 5 years, I have to show my face and say this is falling under this.
So you are in favor of CBIC?
No, sir, sir.
For a particular
I
case,
have been a good intent that I'll at least save my time. Huh? And
that is what the CBIC says.
And secondly,
This is
sir,
two times.
I was under one thing
Yes,
that
please.
whether this circular or instructions are binded to the officer. Can officer himself deny that you are issuing me the wrong circular?
That is why I mentioned that the very nature of the instruction does not say that it is binding, because it is not issued as a circular, but it is an administrative circular. Now, if you were to see the rule book for employment, they would have said all the instructions need to be followed. Otherwise, there is dereliction of the duty. So, sum and substance is he will follow this thing as a gospel truth.
So that also what Rajat Bhai said can be maybe a decent ground for admission also, stating that now because he has it administrative instruction, he has no option but to say, so that is why you listen to me.
That is what one of the additional ground you can take it up.
That is why you listen to me. But circular in general is binding. Administrative instructions are also binding.
Yeah.
Unless
Indra Industry Supreme Court बहुत पहला था अपना वैट वाला, नहीं BST वाला, इंदिरा इंडस्ट्री सुप्रीम कोर्ट, उसके बाद में बहुत सारा सर्विस चली. इंदिरा, वही तो मैं बोला. Yes, please.
For notices for mismatch for 17-18, it falls under 73 initially, and then he, because of the limitation of period, then he changes to 74. Then in that case, in a scenario,
कैसा होएगा?
he's
नहीं 73 में था, अभी 74 में convert किया.
because of that period, because of the time period thing.
No, but 73 notice was issued once.
No.
So then, everyone does.
Yeah, so in those cases, then
no, one will have to see if the notice was here for a single year, you fight it out saying that there is no suppression, so extended period of limitation cannot be attracted here. That is how you have to build the case.
Adamant on.
For penalty, but for extra penalty, this is hypothetically possible. If there is a 73 notice going on, and he at that point of if at that point of time it discovers something which is more, then he has to issue another notice.
And there is no bar for multiple notices.
He has to issue another notice. But it cannot be the same issue. It has to be something new.
For same issue, one can always say that there is no need.
Then you are covered by 16. So, madam, in all cases, this what Jatan and everyone, for the benefit of everyone, in all cases, the central government, we know the CGST department is specifically for 17-18 till 22 and now 18-19 to 23 till now. The reason they were doing
least
it
5 years.
because they have not done it for their time limit for 73 is over. And any issue, sir, any issue. It's not just ITC issue, any issue. I have not come across any 73 notices under by the from the center. I don't know. I
If
mean,
there is a audit, central officer across country, forget about Maharashtra. They say, and there is a standard phrase, but for audit you would not have
okay.
not would have come to our
Sir,
notice.
there is one query online.
Yes. मुझे लिखने का यहाँ पे I see that chat चल रहा है.
Hello, I'm audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, Rajat sir, just one query.
Yes.
The officer has issued show cause notice under 74 for recovery of interest for delay of filing of the returns. So whether under the 74 interest is because 74 speaks about tax not paid, short paid, everything. So for
Obviously.
only interest related, can he issue the show cause notice for that?
Answer is no, because per se there is no separation.
Yeah.
If tax is under 73, how
Yeah.
can the interest be under 74?
That's one, but the officer has passed order also for that. I have given my arguments for that. He has also passed the order for recovery of interest.
Yeah, please continue in appeal.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
This looks like a state issue.
Yes, please.
एक appeal में जाओ.
All right.
If any, no other question.
Yeah. I thank you, the organizers, again for giving me this opportunity to share my views. Thank you very much. ले लो ना, बंद करो ना. Yeah, stop ना. I leave webinar. मारू छे वो. Oh.
Yeah, I request everyone to be seated for an official vote of thanks. Sir, 2 minutes.
Mic कर दो. Friends, कितना है? Friends, I am extremely happy to announce that what we had promised during the Foundation Day, that for 2026 we have come out with a unique GSTPM calendar, which has all the tithis and everything. Also at the same time, it has tax dues also. तो दोनों साइड की जो आपका वर्शिप होता है वो सॉल्व हो जाएगा इसमें. एंड इट गिव्स मी ग्रेट, जो एटलीस्ट जो फिजिकली आया आई वुड रिक्वेस्ट रजत भाई, आप सबको आप दे दो. एंड एनीवन एल्स हु इज कमिंग हियर. नो, इट्स ऑलरेडी इनॉग्रेट. कितनी बार करने का इनॉग्रेट? इट्स ऑलरेडी या सो आई जस्ट दिस इज द सर्कुलर, नॉट द सर्कुलर, सॉरी, क्या बोलते हैं इसको? This is the calendar. This is the calendar. I thank all the persons who have worked on it. And Mr. Praveen Shinde has also worked very hard on it. So I will request Mr. Praveen Shinde, आप आओ, आप रजत भाई साहब पहला आप ले लो. आप ले लो. Thank you. And all other persons who are there, it is there It will be kept here. They can come and collect it.
Yeah. Right. I'm sure this session, everybody enjoyed it. And just 2 lines for that. जीएसटी नोटिसेस का जब हो जाए अंधेरा तो रजत सर का ज्ञान बन जाए सवेरा. Rajat sir, with reference ranging from Oriental Lotus Hotel Supplies Private Limited to Kerala decision in Tharail Medical, SRK Enterprises, Titan Company, Jammu and Kashmir, and Ambika Traders judgment, which was discussed elaborately, you turned a jungle of contradicting judgments into a clear and meaningful path. Rajat sir, only you can take a topic filled with contradictions, complexities, and enough notices to give anyone stress and still make it sound logical, analytical, and at times even enjoyable. Your clarity of thought, depth of understanding, and practical examples turn confusion into comprehension. And for that, we are truly thankful. Thank you so much. I would also like to thank all our office bearers, dignitaries, chairmen, and participants, members online, and everyone present here. Please rise for the national anthem. नमन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाए तव जय गाता जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे. Thank you.